Good evening, little ones, and welcome to Bedtime Stories with Mr. Lee. I, of course, am Mr. Lee, and oh boy, do I have a fun story for you. Tonight, we will be reading the classic tale of Benjamin Bunny. This was one of my absolute favorites growing up, and I'm sure that you are going to love it just as much as I did. So, without further ado, grab your favorite stuffed animal, make sure that you're tucked in tight, close your eyes, and get ready for a story. One morning, Benjamin Bunny sat in the sun by the side of the road. He pricked his ears to the trit trot of a pony and cart. Mr. McGregor was driving the pony cart, and beside him sat Mrs. McGregor, wearing her best bonnet. As soon as they had passed, Benjamin Bunny got an idea. With a hop, skip, and a jump, he set off to visit his cousins, who lived in the woods behind Mr. McGregor's garden. Benjamin's aunt, old Mrs. Rabbit, made her living by knitting mittens and scarves. She also sold herbs, rosemary tea, and lavender. But Benjamin had not come to visit his aunt. He was looking for his cousin Peter. He went around to the back of the fir tree and nearly stumbled over Peter. Peter was sitting by himself, and he didn't look too happy. He was dressed in only a red cotton handkerchief, which he held tightly around him. "Peter," whispered Benjamin, "where are your clothes?" Peter told Benjamin how he had gotten chased through Mr. McGregor's garden and had lost his shoes and coat. Mr. McGregor was using them as a scarecrow in the vegetable garden. Little Benjamin sat down beside his cousin. He told Peter that Mr. and Mrs. McGregor would probably be gone for the whole day because Mrs. McGregor was wearing her best bonnet. He told Peter that they could go to Mr. McGregor's garden and rescue Peter's clothes. Peter did think a walk might do him some good. Peter and Benjamin climbed to the top of Mr. McGregor's garden wall. They looked down and saw Peter's coat and shoes hanging like a scarecrow. A knitted cap topped off the scarecrow's outfit. Benjamin said, "We will get dirty if we squeeze under the gate. We should climb down the pear tree and get into the garden." Peter fell into the garden head first, but he landed in a lettuce bed that was quite soft. They took Peter's clothes off of the scarecrow poles. It had rained during the night, and his shoes were filled with water. His little blue coat had shrunk, and the shiny brass buttons were all missing. Benjamin tried on the cap, but it was too big for him. Now that Peter had his clothes again, they would be able to use the handkerchief for something else. Benjamin began to fill the handkerchief with onions as a present for Peter's mother. He felt perfectly at home here and ate a lettuce leaf. He said he often came to Mr. McGregor's garden with his father to get lettuce for their dinner. Mr. McGregor's lettuce was certainly very tasty. Peter did not eat anything, though. He was not enjoying himself. He kept hearing noises. He wanted to go home. The little bunnies knew that they would not be able to climb up the pear tree with their bundle of onions. Instead, they walked through the vegetables to the other end of the garden. Soon, they were among the flower pots, baskets, and tools. Peter heard noises more than ever. Suddenly, he stopped. His eyes were as big as lollipops. Benjamin took one look, and in no time, he and Peter had hidden themselves and the onions under a large basket. The two little bunnies had seen a big barn cat napping in the afternoon sun. The cat awoke and stretched. She walked to the upside-down basket and gave it a sniff. She sat right down on top of the basket. She must have liked the smell of the onions. And there she sat for 5 hours. The sun was setting over the trees in the woods, but still the cat sat on top of the basket. Peter and Benjamin were trapped. It was quite dark, and the smell of onions was awful. Peter Rabbit and Benjamin Bunny began to cry. Through their tears, the two bunnies heard a pitter-patter, pitter-patter. Stones were falling from the garden wall. The cat looked up and saw old Mr. Benjamin Bunny walking along the top of the wall. He was looking for his son. Old Mr. Bunny was not afraid of cats at all. He jumped from the wall onto the cat and pushed her off the basket, then kicked her into the greenhouse, scratching off a bit of fur. The cat was too surprised to scratch back. After Mr. Bunny had knocked the cat inside the greenhouse, he locked the door. He came right back to the basket and pulled Benjamin and Peter out by their ears. He picked up the bundle of onions and marched the two bad rabbits out of the garden. Old Mr. Bunny scolded them all the way home. He made sure Benjamin and Peter were sorry for their mischief. When Mr. McGregor returned home, he saw several puzzling things. His scarecrow had been robbed of its shoes and jacket, and there were footprints all around it. The footprints were very, very small. Also, he could not understand how the cat could have shut herself in the greenhouse and locked the door from the outside. Old Mrs. Rabbit was so glad to see Peter wearing his shoes and jacket, she quite forgot to scold him for wandering off. She was pleased with the bundle of onions as well. She tied them up and hung them from the kitchen ceiling with her bunches of herbs and lavender. And that, dear children, is the end of tonight's story. I would like to thank you all for joining me in tonight's reading of Benjamin Bunny. I hope you all get a great night's sleep, and I will see you all very soon. Good night, everyone.